There's so many things happening in Washington.
Oh my
Can
goodness!
you give all Americans an update of what's going on?
Sure. I think that although there are who believe the Democrats will try another impeachment before the election, I don't think they will. I think that would be suicide for them. This didn't work out well for them. He's at the highest level of popularity he's ever been after they attempted to remove him. So they're going to have to find other ways to try to attack him. I think they're going to continue to try to do it personally. There's no real issue to attack him on. And I thought his State of the Union speech, people didn't note. It was a lot like Clinton in a way. He sort of triangulated it. He took their issues away. He's doing a better job with the poor. He's doing a better job with minorities. The highest employment rate, lowest unemployment rate, highest wages, more people working. Tough campaign, so they're going to have to go after him personally. And I think the Democrats are going to be consumed with the election rather than legislating. And maybe a couple of their hitmen like Schiff and Nadler will continue to do hearings to put out what they think is embarrassing stuff.
Well, Roger Stone was set to go for 9 years by the 4 prosecutors.
Yeah. That's crazy.
That
John,
worked for Mueller. They worked for Mueller.
But doesn't it tell you how crazy they were? It's everything I said about them is true. These people are out of control, prosecutors, as if they were in some kind of a authoritarian state. And they get away with it because the press doesn't bother to act as a watchdog for them because they hate Trump so much. I mean, this is what they were doing for 2 years, smashing down doors, doing morning raids, putting people in solitary confinement, stuff that if I ever did it, the Times would have gone nuts. 9 years.
They claim that he lied to Schiff, and Schiff is
9 years
to the American public.
Then Schiff should go to jail for 18 years. And I think, look,
it's my buck.
There is a whole thing. I was in the Justice Department more of my life than probably anything. I know the rules. There's no constitutional rule. The president runs the Justice Department. The president can tell the Attorney General what to do. It's his authority, not the Attorney General's authority. So over the years, there's a separation that's been created. But still, if something really outrageous is happening, you want the president to have an opinion on it. I mean, this was an outrageous sentence. Maybe it would have been better if he just waited for Barr to come to that conclusion himself, which I think he was doing. But on the other hand, I kind of like the idea that we have a president who tells us what he thinks and isn't it better he did it openly than if he just called up behind, hey, Bill, knock the sentence down. People in his administration also know when he tweets, he expresses his opinion that way, and it keeps his connection to the American people probably the closest, I guess, any president's ever had. He communicates more than any president.
He communicates directly to the American people. You are correct, and he's entitled to his opinion.
I mean, you would have to be a Trump hater through and through to think that was a fair sentence.
There was an article in the Pittsburgh News or Times that the Attorney General of Pittsburgh is looking into, I believe it said Biden, and they're using a lot of your materials that you got. Have you talked to them at all?
Well, I'm really not allowed to comment on it except to repeat what they said, which is that the Justice Department has assigned it to a U.S. Attorney's office to review it and then to make a determination about how to handle it. And until they announce something different, all I can tell you is I've cooperated with them fully. There's nothing I have that I wouldn't give to them.
Understood. What else would you like to tell the American people on Sunday morning?
Well, I think it's very interesting for you and me that the two guys that are going to run for president, maybe you and I know them probably better than anybody. The two of them. A lot of people know probably Mike and the president better than we know either one of them. But very few people know both of them as well as you and I do, right?
Absolutely.
We can have good conversations. I mean, I don't know I don't think Mike's going to get it, but I think he's going to make it can be a real threat, largely because the Democrats have fallen apart. The only one I see, there who's a good candidate is Klobuchar. She knows how to present herself. Biden has completely disappeared. I mean, he came in 5th or 6th. He can't raise money, and people are yelling at him to drop out. So I don't know that he's a factor. Bernie, they're frightened. He's going to deliver a 48-state victory to Trump. Warren is a terrible candidate. I mean, Bernie's a very good candidate, by the way. Warren's terrible. I mean, she loses more votes than she gains when she talks. Buttigieg's not a bad candidate. Oh, she got a story for everything. I mean, it always turns out to be untrue. So I don't know.
Mr. Mayor, you have
Klobuchar could pull it out, or maybe they'll go to Mike.
Understood. I believe that the Democratic Party is going to shift things around, and I've said this publicly, that poor Sanders, and I don't agree with anything he says, but poor Sanders is going to get screwed again by the Democratic Party.
But I disagree with Sanders completely. I'm not even sure I like his personality, but I do respect him. I mean, think about all the positions Mike has changed. I mean, but what is this stuff about he's condemning Stop-And-Frisk? I did it for 8 years. He did it for 12. I did 100 stops. He did 600. 600. He's the one who took the damn program and, took it to the level of 600. The New York Times would never mention my name, that when I conducted it, the Justice Department reviewed it and found that it hadn't violated the Constitution. You know who determined that? Janet Reno and Eric Holder. New York Times would never say that. They would never write
President Obama's people and President Clinton's
people. They wouldn't give me credit for anything. I was always a little annoyed at him for taking the program and not really monitoring it and letting it run out of control from 100 to 600 down to like only 5% with guns. I knew at some point, I went to the Justice Department 8 years earlier and argued myself with Reno and Holder and talked them out of prosecuting us, the city, for civil rights violations in 2001. And I knew the reason for that was that we kept very tight control on the data. And 100 was about the right number, where you were going to get a return that showed that it was proportionate to the number of people. They got so taken with the fact that if you search 600,000 people, you're surely going to keep the guns off the street because everybody's going to get searched and that walks around in that neighborhood. But then again, there is a constitution and you can't search everybody. But now that and I defended him throughout, and that last part, I had to keep my mouth shut. But now that he's turned on the program and turned on Kelly, I mean, he was 100% in favor of that program, as enthusiastic about it as I was, and bragged about it a lot when he was mayor. And I don't like it when people do that. When I ran for president, I wouldn't change my position on a couple of things. And President Trump says, a couple of those things probably stopped you from being president. Well, I'm not sure they did, but at least I can feel good about myself.
Thank you for all you do for New York and all you do for our country to get the truth out. And it's very important to all that we have justice for all, not justice for a few.
Yes, John, and thank you for the way in which you focus on it. You do a great job on your show. Even the ones that I'm not on, I listen to, and you really stay very, very substantive. I really appreciate it.